Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. The story of Anna Kashfi is one of the strangest in cinematic history. Whether the first wife of Marlon Brando was the ultimate girl on the make, a vengeful harpy, or the increasingly desperate victim of an abusive husband and the Hollywood star system, or perhaps all three, is even now the subject of endless speculation and individual interpretation. Kashfi remains even now, almost 50 years on from her heyday, one of cinema's most extraordinary but also enigmatic and elusive figures. How was Anna Kashfi destroyed by Marlon Brando? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Anna Kashfi, Marlon Brando's mysterious wife. Anna Kashfi, an actress who appeared in several Hollywood films in parts calling for, in the parlance of the day, an exotic beauty, but who became better known for playing a continuing role in a real-life soap opera as Marlon Brando's first wife. Kashfi, who had a caramel complexion and dark eyes, was one of the more confounding figures in 1950s Hollywood. Being of brown skin, she was mostly used in the films as a foreign exotic beauty, and Hollywood was in awe of her enchanting looks for quite some time, before turning its back on her. Her background was never clear. Sources agree that she was born on September 30th, 1934, but that is all they agree on regarding her background. Presumed to be, as was widely reported, the daughter of an Indian architect, Kashfi hid at least parts of her upbringing, and seemingly invented parts as well. Shortly after the marriage was announced, a man named William O'Callaghan, then living in Cardiff, Wales, declared that Anna Kashfi was his daughter, and that she was born in Darjeeling and raised in Calcutta while he was working for the Indian State Railroad. Other news organisations reported that she was baptised in Calcutta. Mr. O'Callaghan said his daughter took the name Kashfi, one she made up, when she was given the role in The Mountain, in which she played a young Hindu woman, the lone survivor of a plane crash in what appear to be the French Alps. Numerous news reports also subsequently said that Anna Kashfi's real name was Joan O'Callaghan. The New York Times, citing immigration records, said that Kashfi had given her name as Joanna O'Callaghan when she came to the United States to make the film. Anna's mother was a devout Hindu, and growing up in a Hindu household had a significant influence on the family's beliefs. She had been inspired by the Hindu way of life since she was a youngster, and when she grew up she chose the pseudonym Anna Kashfi. She spoke with an Indian accent, dressed in Indian garb, performed Hindu rites such as touching feet, and worshipped Hindu idols. Whether she converted formally or not, it was clear that the Hindu culture had a strong influence on her. She received her early education in Calcutta, and while the majority of the specifics regarding her childhood in India are based only on her personal records and comments, they are hotly debated. Like many other Indian girls, the young Anna had learned the classical dances of Asia. At 18, she was sent to study economics in England, when her mother and stepfather were living in Wales. While at a dance class, she had drawn the attention of the directors of an Indian film company, whom, much to her parents' dismay, she signed a contract with to make 2 films. Neither film was released in Europe or America, but from this Kashfi made enough of an impression to start a career in Hollywood. She never finished school and was working as a model when the director Edward Dmytryk cast her in The Mountain. It was an action film about 2 mountaineering brothers, which starred Spencer Tracy and Robert Wagner. The small but pivotal part in which she played a Hindi dancer was totally fitting. One reason for her casting may have been her slight build. She did not have any lines in English and never had to stand up, but had to be carried to safety by the film star Spencer Tracy, who was then in his mid-50s. "Goodbye, Hindu lady," Tracy's character says to her after her rescue. Kashfi came, or so she claimed, from India. Her studio biography stated that she is the daughter of wealthy parents. She was ethnically ambiguous. She became an instant figure of controversy when her film released, as she copied Indian accent for her role while her features looked Western. Somehow she managed to grab the eyeballs of many Hollywood producers who wanted to cast her as this foreign exotic beauty who left everyone mesmerised through her good looks. Some magazines went further, saying that she bathed in coffee to achieve that brownish complexion, which contributed greatly to her attractiveness. Her next film was Battle Hymn in 1959, where she played a Korean girl, a survivor of a plane crash. Anna went on to play a Mexican character in her next film titled Cowboy, which came out the next year. The film Night of the Quarter Moon marked the end of a very short film career. However, she did a couple of stints on the TV, but the drug and alcohol problems she suffered from didn't let her career blossom, and above all her falling out with Marlon Brando, her first husband, who also happened to be one of the biggest Hollywood stars at the time, did not help her cause. The year was 1957. Marlon Brando was the king of Hollywood, having won an Oscar for On the Waterfront. Marlon Brando is one of those movie heartthrobs we don't quite get anymore, and I mean get in both senses of the word. Odd-looking, with his sly eyes and stocky build, he was not classically handsome. His acting was moodily mannered, and it could be argued that as much as he possessed raw thespian talent, he got very lucky with casting. His association with Tennessee Williams was a crucial early boost. The deterioration of his voice, delivery as his career tapered off to a Superman cameo made him an object of derision. Anna was a rising star with Blue Blood, an Indian princess. Name changes were almost de rigueur for aspiring actors, so Tully Elise Finclair became Sid Charisse, Frances Ethel Gum duly became Judy Garland, and Margarita Carmen Cancino was rebaptized Rita Hayworth, but name changing was only one of the necessary transformations. Studio publicity chiefs would create biographies to match, with the far-fetched often replacing any facts. Kashfi would not only be the first Indian actress to be signed in Hollywood, but would also be marketed as the Grace Kelly of India. To complete the package, she was given fictional parents, complete with Indian names, to accompany her 7-year contract with the mighty MGM Studios. The studio invested heavily in its protégés and guarded their reputations with a vengeance. I cannot remember when an East Indian actress has been signed in Hollywood, but Anna Kashfi, after an impressive colour test, was nabbed by MGM, Luella O. Parsons. Then in 1956, while she was working on her very first feature film and immediately became Marlon's subject of curiosity, and then started dating right away, she was a blistering tell-all in which she savaged Brando as a sexually incompetent and perverse, as well as belligerent, narcissistic and unreliable. After a brief romance and an unplanned pregnancy, the couple married in Brando's aunt's front room. In 2015, the Daily Express reported that Brando once described his first wife as probably the most beautiful woman I've ever known. The wedding was front-page news around the world. His new bride was 23, claimed to be an Indian princess, and was pregnant. Being the wife of Brando immediately brought her into the limelight, and the controversies surrounding her past started emerging. She was declared to be the first Indian actress signed in Hollywood, yet the only time she played an Indian woman on screen was in her first role as a mute Hindu. Subsequently she played a Korean, a Mexican, and, as the wife of Nat King Cole, an indeterminate exotic. This was at the same time that All-American star Ava Gardner was playing an Anglo-Indian in Bhelwani Junction. India was seen as exotic at that time, points out Broughton, because it was different, foreign, a long way from America. But in Hollywood terms at that time, the 1950s, there was no real understanding of race, which is why Brando played Japanese men, and Mickey Rooney as well as Katharine Hepburn, among others, also played yellow-face parts. Just like her career and the talk surrounding her true background, Anna's married life was always on the rocky side of things. The stormy marriage lasted only 11 months. Together they made a beautiful couple, with the world seemingly at their feet. That was until Marlon Brando realised that Anna Kashfi, the woman he had married, was actually Joan O'Callaghan, a Welsh butcher's assistant, who owed her exotic looks to her Anglo-Indian ancestry rather than a royal lineage. who was telling the truth and who was lying, and, perhaps most importantly, why. I have, I'll admit, a slight fascination with the so-called golden age of Hollywood. I find it both endlessly fascinating and achingly sad to discover the complex and often troubled nature of the real lives being led behind the facades, the studios and the media so carefully curated. The life of Anna Kashfi, the forgotten first wife of Hollywood star Marlon Brando, is one such troubled life, and her story is given the treatment it deserves in this video, so please do not hesitate to subscribe if you like it. By 1959 they were divorced. Kashfi filed for divorce in 1959 after claims Brando had cheated on her and abused her. Brando said she was unfit to look after their son, Christian, and a custody battle ensued. The battle for the custody of their son, Christian, took an ugly 10-year of spats and serious allegations from one another. But it didn't end there. It's reported in her 1979 memoir, Brando for Breakfast. Kashfi called the legend a balding, paunchy, hypochondriac, middle-aged, wheezing superman, an egomaniac, a rock upon which other egos founder. She also claimed that she had been the victim of physical and emotional abuse. Brando, in his defense, has reportedly accused her of being violent, addicted to alcohol and prescription drugs. Interestingly, Kashfi reportedly has a history of exaggerating the truth. The rows over custody continued until Christian was 12. Kashfi paid $10,000 in a scheme to have their son, Christian, whisked off to a tent camp in Mexico, kidnapped while Brando was filming Last Tango in Paris in France in 1972. He was later found frightened and suffering from bronchitis, which meant Brando won sole custody. Drink and drugs then played their parts in her dissolution, not least the new pill and comforter called Milltown that was all the rage in the US, soon to be followed by drugs such as Benzedrine, which hooked Elvis Presley and scrambled the brains of British Prime Minister Anthony Eden, and probably played a part in the monumental botch that was the Suez Crisis. Anna had plenty of crises of her own, and of the most testing moments in Kashfi's life came when Christian turned to crime and was convicted of murder. The man was Dag Drollett, the boyfriend of his half-sister Cheyenne. He claimed he had confronted Dag during a row over his pregnant sister's claims that he had been violent when a gun accidentally went off during the struggle. During an emotional testimony in court, Marlon said, "I think I perhaps failed him as a father. The tendency is to blame the other parent, but I am certain there were things I could have done differently." Christian was jailed for 10 years and was freed after half the term. A year before his release in 1996, Cheyenne, then 25, hanged herself at her mother Tarita Tarapaya's home in Tahiti. After making her final film, Night of the Quarter Moon, in 1959, Kashfi made a few rare appearances on TV before marrying Los Angeles businessman James Hannaford in 1974. He died in 1987. Her son Christian passed away of pneumonia in 2008, 12 years after he was released from prison. When Brando died in 2004, aged 80, Kashfi didn't join in with the tributes that poured in from around the world. Speaking to the South Wales Echo at the time, she said, "Marlon ruined my life. The world may be mourning the loss of a brilliant actor, but personally he was a monster. The only good that came out of his passing is that Christian and I can now meet again openly, and I can give him some of the love that has been missing all these years." Kashfi skewered the Hollywood legend in an exclusive interview with The Inquirer. "My marriage to Marlon was a misery. He cheated on me with both men and women," raged Kashfi, then 70. She then blamed him for turning Christian into a murderer. All Christian wanted was his father's love, but there were too many other children who were getting that instead of him, Kashfi told The Inquirer. Nothing Christian did pleased his father. He wanted to be an actor, but his dad wouldn't help him. Soon Christian was into drugs and booze and hanging out with the Hollywood crowd. Marlon was disgusted. All these events came to a tragic conclusion when Christian shot Dag Drollett, thinking the man was abusing Cheyenne, the source said. After Cheyenne tragically committed suicide, Kashfi told, "When my poor son got out of prison, Marlon banished him, sending him to live in rural Washington state. Brando also threatened Christian with disinheritance if he ever spoke to me, his own mother. But Christian did visit and call and begged me not to tell his father," she said. Anna's death comes 6 months after Brando's second wife, Mavita Castaneda, passed away aged 98 after being hospitalized for a neck injury. Kashfi indeed lived a longer life than many of her fellow actors, and fortuitously she did find brief happiness in a second marriage, but also lived long enough to find herself living in a trailer park, being sued by her son's ex-girlfriend, and living with a rat in the kitchen. This was far removed from her earlier life, where she acted alongside some of the biggest stars and married one of them. Rags to riches and then back almost to rags again. A story both political and personal. We may never know why she chose one pedigree over another. Indian over Anglo-Indian. Indian over Welsh. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. What the truth is and who has made the other person's life miserable is hard to find out. What is certain, however, is that Marlon has also had a difficult time. Watch this video and find out how Marlon Brando became so fat he could not act properly.